Hi everyone. This week we're talking about faith and doubt for our tuned in discussions, and this can be something that really affects our enthusiasm for sharing faith with others. So, a lot of young people and young adults tend to see the world as a really broken place, and it's quite hard to kind of view the brokenness and God's goodness and kind of reconcile the two. As it's difficult to kind of see God as someone who is good when you see all the mess that is around. So today we're joined by Dan from Hope Together, and he's really passionate about empowering young people to share Jesus with others. So before we kind of start our discussion, Dan, can you share a little bit about yourself and your role at Hope Together?
Yeah, so I'm Dan. I live in Burnley in the northwest of England. And I help lead an organisation called HOPE Together. And we do a bunch of stuff with young people and youth leaders to help them share their faith and be the church wherever they are.
Love it. That's great. So, kind of just to kick us off, do you find it hard to share faith with others?
Yeah, definitely. I was talking with some friends about this recently. I think sometimes we think it's easier for others or easier for some people that maybe we like see as like, oh, they're a leader or they're an evangelist, or maybe people use different words. And I think the reality is it doesn't just because you are a leader or an evangelist, one of those things doesn't necessarily make it easier. It might mean that it's on your mind more to do it. But I think actually for everyone, it's a great opportunity and a great challenge as well sometimes. And every single conversation, every relationship we have, whether that's with siblings or friends or other kinds of relationships, actually, each one is very different, and how we share Jesus to them is very different. So actually, I think it can be hard, but it's also about seeing it as a journey. And I think sometimes when we see it as a journey, then actually we can celebrate the small steps easier and small opportunities. And I think sometimes that therefore makes it not necessarily easier, but it feels more like we've achieved something, or we've like really been able to share Jesus with someone.
That's great. It's really encouraging to hear that others who are actually like really involved in evangelism still find it a little bit tricky sometimes. So kind of digging into what some of the young people that we work with might be facing. How do you find it when people ask you difficult questions that you don't know the answer to? Because I think this is something that really puts a lot of people off.
Mm. Yeah, I think it depends who's asking it. If a stranger is asking you on the street, or you've come into a conversation with someone that you're not really connected to in relationship with, I think that's a different matter.
Yeah.
And I think you have to do the best you can in the moment. I think the beautiful thing about if you're connected to someone, if you're in a relationship with someone and you're doing life with them or you're journeying with them, is a great answer is, I don't know, but I'll come back to you. If you and not you can't use that every like all the time, but actually if they ask you a question that you not necessarily it's you might know the answer, it's uncomfortable, well that we can come to that in a minute. But if you don't know the answer, then that's a great thing, and actually people really respect that, because it's actually really secure and strong and courageous to say, actually I don't know, but I'm going to go and find out because I care for you, I love you, whoever this person is. And that's why I'm doing that. That's why I'm going to come back to them. I think in terms of if it's a difficult question that we know the answer to, and maybe we feel uncomfortable giving an answer, for me, the really simple thing that I do is I'm just trying to talk to the Holy Spirit, talk to God in that moment in my head, praying and saying, God, I really need your help to communicate this well, communicate this in love, communicate this in grace. And so this person actually engages with you. So actually they can have an encounter with you through this conversation. Um, and the answer might not be what they want to hear, but also we're not in charge of whether the answer is what they want to hear. We're in charge of actually giving the answer which is in line with what God says in his word in the Bible, but then also what is revealed to us too.
Yeah, some really good points there. I think it's really valuable actually to be honest and to be authentic when you don't know the answer. I think people, like you say, I think people really respect that courage to kind of go, actually, I don't know the answer to that. So yeah, no, that's really great advice. So
And just to add to that, I think people, particularly for guys listening to this, your generation, and you probably already know this, but like Authenticity is so important to people in your generation and to yourself. So actually doing that actually wins you some like favor with those people, some kudos that actually can enable you to build more bridges. And but I think it's all part of seeing it as a longer journey. Don't see people as projects. Don't see, oh, I have to like reach people for Jesus. It's like a project, or I have to share my faith, and I have to see this many people come to know Jesus by the time I'm 20 or whatever. Well, actually, no, that's just really unrealistic, and I'm just not convinced that's how God works. Actually, God really wants to. God's a relational God. He's encouraging us to be in relationship with others, and therefore help them to become in relationship with Him. Sometimes that is a lifetime's journey. Sometimes it's 1 month. Sometimes it's a day. There's so many different things in between, but we commit to that journey with them and helping them experience God and experience Jesus in their life right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a journey. As a voice leader, I can totally testify to that it is ongoing all the time. Yeah, so you've kind of spoken about a few things there, but is there any advice that you give to any young people who want to share Jesus with their peers, but they find it difficult or they don't know where to start?
Yeah, I would always say start with your story. I think people can argue about the Bible or about certain Christian like practice or traditions till whatever. Like they can keep arguing those things. But if again it comes back to relationship, like if these people are truly your friend, number one, hopefully they respect your belief as you respect their beliefs.
Mm.
Um, because whether they follow one of like the recognized 6 major religions in the UK or not, they still have beliefs. So it's important to respect them. And obviously that's mutual in friendship, and that's what friendship is about. But actually in friendship and in relationship, actually then we can really, like I've mentioned, go on a journey with them, and they will respect our story and respect us sharing our story. Some people might call that testimony of what God has done in our lives. And actually they might think the Bible is a load of rubbish, but actually if they're your friend, they're hopefully not going to think what you said about your story and how God's changed your life is a load of rubbish. They just might say, well, actually, that's thanks so much for sharing that. That's really interesting. Um, and I think I struggle to understand some of that, but actually, that's great for you. That might be a response, but hopefully that's the kind of response that friends give, and that's the benefit of the journey with people, of the relational, because actually then as we share our story of what God has done, they are, I think what we've got to remember is people are way more bought into you than they are into God at that point. If they're not a Christian, they're way more bought into you than they are into God. So therefore, you are representing Jesus to them. And so their experience of God is you, is me, like to my friends, to my family. Now, you might think that's a lot of pressure, but actually, the Holy Spirit is there to help us and lead us and guide us in that.
Definitely.
That would be the first thing. Sorry, that would be the first thing is your story. That would be the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. Thinking via the Holy Spirit is a really important part of that. But no, all the advice that you've given there is really good and really clear. So thank you for that. For those who are interested in kind of exploring this further, is there any like resources that you'd recommend or ways that they can kind of learn more about evangelism and sharing faith?
Yeah, I'd say two main ways or two main things I want to share. One is something called Mission Academy Live, which is a 10-part video series, which is free, which you can run with your friends at church, like online or gathered, whatever's possible based on restrictions at that time,
Mhm.
with your youth leader. And it's a set of videos, there's pause points, fun things, and basically it helps you share your faith. It helps you think about what is the gospel. How do I share my faith through words? How do I share it through action? How do I lead someone to Jesus? And all these kind of, how is prayer sharing my faith? So many different things. So I'd encourage you to go check it out. It's called Mission Academy Live. And that's free for any youth groups to access and get. And then the other thing is maybe you're listening to this and you're going, actually, I love sharing my faith. Actually, it's something I'm super passionate about. Not something I necessarily find easy, but I'm super passionate about it. And actually, yeah, that's me. That's kind of where I'm at. Well, maybe then Amplify Young Evangelist Academy is for you. And you can find out more about that in advanced2020.org/amplify. and you need to get a leader to sign you up, a youth leader, a church leader, or maybe a voice leader, to sign you up. If you want to go on a whole year's experience where you stay where you are, but actually getting some extra input and training, and a couple of residentials, few things when they're possible, and some input from evangelists in actually how to do this with the rest of your life. So that would be great as well.
Sounds so awesome. That sounds like something that I would have loved to have had when I was a bit younger. Um, Amazing. Well, we've come to the end of our discussion. So thank you so much, Dan, for sharing some of your experiences and knowledge on this subject. We really appreciate it. And for those of you who are watching, we hope that you feel encouraged to go and have a go at sharing faith with your friends where you are.